Morning, folks. Everything new on its own. All right, this is it's kind of a random one, kind of not. It's related to creation. It's related to climate change, global warming, sea waters rising. Now, this isn't a video to come out and totally dispute climate change. I believe the climate does change. Rather, I think there's a focus that is not completely correct as it relates to the water rising and it being a man-made phenomenon. So here are some images of erosion, shoreline erosion, and what we're told all the time is that this is due to climate change. The water is rising because the ice caps are melting, and so the water is rising and taking up more and more of our land. And the suggestion is that we can change the course of nature to prevent erosion. And I 100% do not believe that this is possible, and I'll tell you why. When Noah's flood occurred and the waters receded off the continents, that was the starting point. At that point in time, effectively, most of the land was ceased from rising or being created. Now you have land being created from volcanoes, such as in Hawaii, where new land mass was created. And the mountains, in some cases, are still rising. Where the tectonic plates are sliding onto each other and still lifting and causing earthquakes. But islands like, for example, Prince Edward Island, which is effectively a big sandbar, and the rest of coasts of North America where there's no tectonic plate activity, the East Coast, for example, there's no volcanoes increasing land from lava flow and cooling. You have just plain erosion. So ever since Noah's flood, the continents are just continually eroding. So from about 3,400 years ago, you have Noah's flood, the water receded. At that point in time, you kind of had the landmass as it was and as it ever will be, aside from the tectonic plates shifting and volcanic activity. Ever since then, all you have is erosion, where the waves, the constant movement of the waves, because of the moon and the gravity, you have the tide in and out, eroding the sand of every shoreline around the world. That never stops, and you have temperatures rising and falling. And I would suggest to you that the wave action is actually what is causing, I might even suggest, a lot, if not a large percentage, or maybe even, well, I won't go as far as saying all, but a large percentage of the sea level rise. Now, why do I say that? Well, I have this fascinating sketch pad here, and I thought I would just, it's just rough and tumble. I'm just going to kind of tell you my thoughts on this. So what we have here is the ocean. Let's see, can I do I don't know if I can do a color here. Let's do, yes, I want to pick that. Okay, so here's the ocean, right? This is the water of the ocean, and the continents are on either side. So you have maybe the east coast of North America on the left side here, and you have Europe over here, etc., across the pond, basically on the other side of the Atlantic. Now what you have is wave action, and that wave action basically takes sediment from either side and slides it down, deposits it into the bottom of the ocean. Let me see. I'm going to go with a more grayer color here. Let's see if I can do this. So what it does is it causes the sediment basically to slide in. So over time you have sediment sliding inwards, and you have this the shoreline decreasing, getting lower, and you have more sediment being deposited on the bottom of the ocean like this. And so over time you have more and more sediment being deposited on the ocean. What does this do? This fills in the area, the void, if you will, where the water existed. What happens to the water then is the water then increases in height because it has less space to take up, basically, because there's now a whole bunch of sediment on the bottom. And this has been happening for 3,400 years. Since the flood, the water has been washing just by wave action, just by tidal action, and effectively filling in the ocean, which means there's less space for the actual water. And so by that, you have an increase in waves. You also have a shallower angle for the water, so that means the water actually is more turbulent because because the area is more shallow where the water is going. You have more white caps. It's not a complete drop off from the cliff, but this is a really crude example. And what you never have accretion. You never have effectively in any large amount land being created by any wave action. Wave action always pulls down the cliffs and the shoreline. And that's been happening for 3,400 years. And that's going to happen for eternity, until the Lord returns. And basically that will happen forever until the Lord returns. There's no big, massive noetic flood action that is creating land anymore in bulk like it did when the flood occurred. And so this climate change that they speak of, that they suggest is the whole reason for this, I've never heard them talk about just plain wave action that is eating away continually at the shorelines, filling in the ocean effectively, and over time that would decrease the depth of the ocean, that would increase the turbulence at the shores as it's shallower and causing more white caps when storms do come, and filling this in, and effectively at some point, the ocean, the world in total would be very shallow in terms of the oceans, because at some point, if you give it enough time, the oceans would fill in with sediment, with all the wave action kind of drawing in, eating away the continents. And so you'd have a really shallow ocean all the way around once all the sediment kind of filled in to the middle. If I go like that, you'd see how shallow the ocean is. That means there's less place for the water to be. The water is going to then consume more area on land, more low spots as space decreases for it to actually fill. So this is just this is a really crude explanation of what I believe is the more logical reason why water is the sea levels are rising, and the fact that there's really nothing you can do to prevent erosion. It's going to happen. The world is winding down. And until we have another Noah's flood to raise up the earth and have the water drain off again to create new land space and areas, you're never going to be able to recover this. Even if the ice caps weren't melting, the sea level would still be rising, I believe, because the waves continually fill in the ocean, causing the water to go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere, and also you're going to have that increased turbidity, I think that's what it's called. So this is just a short little video. I understand pretty rough, but just to give you an idea of my thoughts. I hope to do kind of a larger keynote on this particular situation. But this is what I see. This is kind of my answer to climate change, and can we actually really stop it? I don't think so. The Earth is doing its own thing. It's eroding every day, whether or not there's chemicals in the air, there's CO2, there's greenhouse effects. It's simply eroding all the time, every single day, with every tide, and so you can't stop this. What you need is God to come back and recreate the earth with effectively another flood, creating new land masses. Again, outside of volcanic activity, etc. So let me know what you think of that idea. I think that kind of explains what I'm thinking there. And when you hear about land erosion and all these things, what they do on TV documentaries is they blame it on climate change, and they say, if we just got this global warming, quote unquote, or climate change under control, we could prevent this erosion. Well, no, I think the oceans are slowly filling in, and that's why, a large part of why the ocean sea levels are rising. And you cannot stop that. There's absolutely no way to stop that. We simply have to adjust to it, but that's fine because the Lord didn't expect the earth to last for millions of years. He only expected it to last about 6,000 years, and we're nearing the end of that. So, short video there, guys. Let me know what you think of that, and I hope to expand on this in the future. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.